Thank you for clicking on this video. It's about to get super weird. First of all, I just want to apologize for the really grainy, really just awful quality of this video. I tried really hard to do better. I tried, which is something. But apparently I'm just awful at not cropping my head off and focusing on a professional camera. So I'm just throwing it back old school style to when people used to sit and talk to their crappy video cameras on their computers. I think it's kind of nice because it's kind of nostalgic, grainy, and some people really work hard to achieve that grainy vibe. So it is what it is. So I want to talk to you about periods, and I have put off shooting this video for a long time because I've never really in my adult life sat in front of a camera and spewed a lot of random information out to the internet. That I have no idea if anyone ever will watch. But I have a really good period story, and for a long time it's bummed me out that I can't share it with people because it's supposed to be like private, I guess. There are probably like 3 people, like my sister and my husband, that know my period story. And honestly, like, not a lot of really cool stuff happens to me. And I have like a really adventurous period story, so it kind of bums me out that like I can't tell people about it. But I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like I should talk about it, and here's why. First of all, it's not some big secret, obviously. If you don't know that women have a period every month, then I don't really know why. If you're like 5 or something, that's okay, but much older than that, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe you were raised like me, where we didn't talk about anything, like chin down, you didn't touch it, look at it, talk about it, just cover it up and shut up about it, basically, which was pretty traumatic. My mom did have attempt to kind of introduce the sex talk when I got back from my honeymoon. So yeah, I assured her that we'd figured things out. And I'm kind of glad it didn't come up before then because I didn't have to sit through that awkwardness. But I think it's really important. I know for me as a mother, I have a daughter, and I'm going to be hopefully the first person to talk to her about the things that are going to happen to her body. Because, the internet's much more of a prominent thing than it was in my childhood. And even beyond the internet, I don't know, there's just such easy access and such a oversaturation of all of this information. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I want the way that my daughter goes through this journey to be completely different than what I went through. So I think that's important because I think that it's probably not just my daughter. I think it's a lot of people based on just some things I've read and talking to my friends and hearing some of their experiences. It's awful. Like, just buzzing through our fairly innocent childhood, and then bam, you're bleeding, and like no prior warning. That's not super great, and it was really awkward, embarrassing, and probably didn't do the right thing that we were supposed to. And I think that that part of growing up is beautiful and to be celebrated. It means that your body is doing the things that it's supposed to do, and yeah, it can be crappy, but in feeling, but it's a great thing, and I want to be there and celebrate that with my daughter. And she'll probably be embarrassed and hate me for it, but when she's older, maybe she won't hate me as much for it. And then another thing that has made me even think a lot more about it there are a few more options more readily available to women now besides tampons and periods. Tampons and pads, periods, pads, tampons, whatever. Which are like things like the Diva Cup and the period panties, like Thinx, and I loved their campaign and a lot of the information they shared, and they were really encouraging women to share their period stories. And I was also watching a really brief documentary about homeless women and what they do during their time of the month, and it's embarrassing to say that I hadn't given that any consideration until I had seen that video, and I can't imagine how just gross and awful that must feel. So I'd like to encourage anyone who's watching this video to consider picking up some feminine hygiene products and dropping it off at a local shelter, women's shelter, or just finding a way, whatever's near you, to donate those products and help women in need, because I'm sure you can imagine how hard that would be. I mean, it's hard for me with having easy access to a Midol or a hot bath, or pads and tampons, whatever I need. So as I mentioned, I had no prior warning as to what was supposed to go on with a developing woman's body. And coincidentally, I was on a missions trip at St. Lucia when I was 12 years old. And I was there with a group of really awesome girls. And I remember waking up and going to the restroom and realizing that I was bleeding. And for some reason, I didn't completely freak out, which is probably not because I had no idea what was going on. I guess I didn't have a really good sense of survival. I was just like, oh, I feel like maybe something like this is supposed to happen. I kind of remember overhearing like little tidbits of discussions. My mom was very super private. I have no idea how she hid that whole woman business so well, because I am not very private about it. My daughter has run around the house shredding tampons and pads and asking about it, and I just am pretty straight up about it, honestly. I don't think there's anything to hide. I'd rather it not surprise her one day. So I remember going to the bathroom and bleeding, and there wasn't anyone who I felt comfortable barging out and being like, yo, I'm bleeding, what's going on? So I was just like, okay, well, it'll probably stop really soon. I rolled up some toilet paper and just crammed it in there as the best I could and went on my merry little way. Well, what was on the agenda for us that day was getting in a crowded bus, driving up a mountain back into a really small village, where there wasn't, that I recall, plumbing, a bathroom. I'm hoping I'm not recalling any of this incorrectly, but I'm fairly certain that I spent a really long afternoon wishing I could go to the bathroom, and there wasn't. So I don't know if I just was too embarrassed to ask to find a bathroom or walk to one. I'm pretty sure there wasn't a bathroom. And the roads were very, they were not paved. They're rocky and full of potholes, and it was, I think during that month or so that we were there, had so many flat tires. So the morning that we're all packed in this van and driving up the mountain, we get a flat tire, and everybody hops out and goes to help. And I was just sitting there I'm sorry, I'm just not going to help change the tire because I don't feel like getting out of the car, and standing on the side of the road because I was already pretty uncomfortable and could tell that I was still bleeding and wondering when it was going to stop. And then we fixed the tire and continue on our merry little way. And I do remember, I think I found some type, paper towels or more napkins or something, because I was I'm still bleeding. I don't know what's going on. This is going to be super embarrassing if it shows. And then that day I was put in charge of we were doing a vacation Bible school at this tiny little church up in this village, and I was in charge of recreational activities, which was running around in the really intense heat, kicking balls and being super excited and playing games. So that was really intense. So that finally ended, and I remember getting, we somehow didn't have a massive embarrassing mess. I got back to where we were staying and was still bleeding, and so I pulled one of the other girls aside and I was like, hey, I don't know what's happening to me. Probably need to go to find a hospital. I was bleeding this morning. I'm still bleeding like crazy. And she was giggling and grabbed the other girls, and they were explained what was happening to me. Um, and I was still really embarrassed. As much, I mean, they were great and accepting and encouraging, and they did make me feel better, but it was so shocking, like unexpected to me, and it felt so private. And I guess because of the way I was raised, discussing anything going on down there was just really, um, I was really uncomfortable with that. But I remember like sitting in a circle and they all tried to teach me how to use a tampon. I was like, I'm so uncomfortable with inserting anything up there. So instead, I got like these pads that were basically diapers that I proceeded to wear for years and years because I didn't know any better. And then one year finally I saw a friend of mine and she was like, "Oh, I need a new pad," and she pulled like this tiny, sleek, and chic little panty liner. I was like, "That's your pad? Mine is a diaper." And she's like, "What? Why are you?" I'm like, "I don't know. My mom buys them for me at Walmart. They're like some not name brand thing." And so thankfully I discovered that you could wear pads that didn't feel like toilet paper roll between your legs. Um, and then that night, we were able to talk to, like, call home, like, make a couple of calls, like, maybe once a week or something. So the other girls were really sweet and taking care of me and tried to make sure that I could call home to my mom. But there was one phone in the house and it was in the kitchen. And the time my mom called, we were all gathered around for dinner and there were guys there, and I was not going to pick up the phone and be like, "Mom, why didn't you warn me? I started my period. I'm in St. Lucia, and like I don't weird stuff is happening to me, and I don't know why, and you didn't tell me." So I just like kind of sobbed quietly and had a normal discussion with her over the phone, and then when I got home, I was like, "Yeah, that was not cool, Mom." Um, and yeah, I survived. They got me the things that I needed, and it was pretty much all downhill from there because for some reason, periods just don't get easier. They don't, and it's super annoying. Like every year that I get older, it's like, "Oh, happy birthday!" And by the way, now you're gonna get a 3-day migraine every time your period comes. And next year, we're gonna add really intense back pain. So yeah, it's gonna be great up until you stop having your periods, and then that's just a whole other slew of fun things for you to discover. So that's my period story. I think I skipped a lot of details, but basically the point was that I was on an island far, far away from home and bled an entire day without any plumbing. Um, and it was not fun. And I don't want that to happen to my daughter. And I don't, I'm not trying to like throw my mom under the bus. It's fine. It worked out. But I'm probably going to be that mom that throws a period party for my kid. It can be very private, but there's going to be cake and chocolate and celebrating, and because it's like periods suck enough on their own. It doesn't need to be made worse by awkwardness and insecurities and shame. Oh, I hope she's not going to be mad at me for saying this, but I have a friend who we were talking about this whole experience, and she was telling me that she was in ballet when she first got her period, and she didn't know how tampons worked because there was no one around to teach her, and it was, it's too embarrassing to like run up to your friends and talk to them about it. So she just stuck the whole thing up there, plastic insert and all, and then walked on her way to dance class and proceeded to try to just one of my, I don't know ballet words, I've never done ballet, flit and fly across the room. Every time I think about that, it sounds so awful. Like, tampons are pretty uncomfortable sometimes as they are without plastic sharp pieces just like slicing. So I'm glad that she figured out pretty quickly that's not how you work tampons. But that's not okay. That's not the type of experience that girls should have. So let's normalize talking about periods, and I'd love to hear your ideas and how you plan on breaking the news to your daughters and how you plan on embracing that part of their life when it comes, And if you have a period story that you're dying to share, please tell me. And I also really want to know who's using Diva cups and who's using Thinx panties, or I guess there are other brands of period panties. I don't know why I haven't taken the leap yet. I keep meaning to. It's really only sheer laziness. But if someone can convince me to take the leap, then I'm definitely interested in other solutions, because let's face it, tampons and pads are not the greatest thing that ever happened to women. All right, I'm incredibly impressed if you watched it to the end of this video. For future videos, I promise, fingers crossed, better quality and probably less length. I had a lot on my chest today, okay guys? All right, take care.